Take your seat, please. The session is about to start, and we are just waiting for the delegation of Comoros to arrive.
And 거기 저 NGO 리스트 있냐고 물어보지? 누가 가지고 있나 NGO 리스트를?
Chers membres, chers délégués,
Distinguished delegates, please take your seats.
Okay, Excellencies, dear colleagues, let's start with our afternoon meeting. So I recognize Switzerland as a point of order. So Switzerland, you have the floor.
Monsieur le Président.
Chair, I'd like to thank you for giving me the floor. Following this morning's discussions, I urge you to respect the right to speak in the speaking time and all other rights of all delegates throughout the session. The delay we've accumulated cannot infringe on the exercise of these rights. I know that we had 1 minute to present a technical amendment on a case regarding a deferred nomination. Several delegations requested the floor, and it wasn't done. So we should follow the practice which has been exercised many times. It is part of the third C in Busan. This means that this should be followed very closely, and we refuse the interpretation of some delegates who said that we hadn't properly introduced our amendment. Thank you for your attention, and we will be closely tracking future work.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. Quite relevant. Lebanon, just a limit 1 minute.
Merci, Monsieur le
Thank you, Chair. Very quickly, we second the statement made by the delegate of Switzerland. You must respect all delegations and the right of a delegation to introduce amendments. There are no delegations that have rights and others that don't. Everybody has the same rights. We have to debate things, and we must have the time for debate. It's all very well going swiftly, but instead of spending time talking for the sake of it, we can do very technical, practical things which are actually meaningful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Grenada, very quickly.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. I just want to add our voice to what was said by Switzerland and Lebanon. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Czechia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. To be super short, you won't be surprised that we support the statement just made by Switzerland and supported by other countries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. You should be well taken note of in our summary record. Now, in relation to the nomination took place this morning, we received GAPL, Joint Action for the Cancellation of Saemangeum New Airport, Eco Horizon Institute, and East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership, 3 NGOs. I give the floor for each NGO 1 minute. 1 minute each. You have the floor. Is there joint action for the cancellation of Saemangeum New Airport?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead.
Honorable Chair, my name is Ji-Eun Kim, Co-Executive Director of the Joint Action for the Cancellation of Saemangeum New Airport. We expressed our deep concern that the condition to cancel the Saemangeum New Airport project was omitted from the recommendations for the Phase 2 listing of GAPL, Korean tidal plate. The IUCN explicitly identified this airport as the most severe threat to the world heritage. Through a tidal plate, the proposed airport site is ecologically connected to the Suncheon GAPL World Natural Heritage Site. It is the vital stopover and crucial habitat for species on the East Asian Australasian flyway. This site far exceeds the criteria for World Natural Heritage. Before the seawall was built, the Saemangeum tidal plate was the largest stopover for shorebirds in the Yellow Sea. However, 97% vanished after its construction. The remaining species now depend on the Sura tidal plate for their very survival. Sura is an indispensable habitat that cannot be sacrificed for just an airport. The construction of the airport at Sura directly impairs the OUV of the Suncheon tidal plate. Therefore, development in this area should be strictly controlled, and the airport project should at least undergo a heritage impact assessment. We honestly request that the Old Heritage Committee, through immediate reconsideration, explicitly state the withdrawal of the Saemangeum New Airport project as a recommendation in the decision for the phase 2 listing of Gapal Korean tidal flag. Furthermore, we urge the committee to recommend that the remaining tidal flag in Saemangeum, including the Swa tidal flag, be nominated for phase.
Okay, I now invite Echo Horizon Institute for 1 minute. Are you there?
Just a moment.
If Echo Horizon Institute is not ready, I give the floor 1 minute, East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership. No?
สวัสดีครับท่านผู้ชมที่เคารพทุกท่านครับขอต้อนรับทุกท่านมายังวัดพระมหาธาตุวรมหาวิหารอำเภอเมืองนครศรีธรรมราชจังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชโดยสำนักงานประชาสัมพันธ์จังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชกรมประชาสัมพันธ์พบกับผมสิทันสุคนทปฏิภาคและทีมงานครับวันนี้ครับสำหรับบรรยากาศของการเตรียมตัวเฉลิมฉลองวัดพระมหาธาตุวรมหาวิหารจังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชประเทศไทยที่เตรียมตัวขึ้นทะเบียนเป็นมรดกโลกทางวัฒนธรรมแห่งใหม่ของภาคใต้และประเทศไทยของเรานะครับซึ่งอีกสักครู่ครับจะมีการถ่ายทอดสดจากปูซานประเทศเกาหลีใต้ให้ท่านผู้ชมที่กำลังรับชมอยู่ทางถ่ายทอดสดของสำนักงานประชาสัมพันธ์จังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชกรมประชาสัมพันธ์นั้นได้รับชมอย่างต่อเนื่องและติดตามอย่างใกล้ชิดสำหรับผลการพิจารณาของมรดกโลกในครั้งนี้นะครับบรรยากาศในขณะนี้ที่วัดพระมหาธาตุวรมหาวิหารนั้นก็มีทั้งคณะสงฆ์และพุทธศาสนิกชนและชาวนครศรีธรรมราชพร้อมด้วยชาวไทยนะครับเดินทางกันมาอย่างต่อเนื่องเพื่อพร้อมนะครับในการติดตามชมบรรยากาศของการขึ้นทะเบียนวัดพระมหาธาตุวรมหาวิหารจังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชนะครับและในขณะนี้นะครับก็มีการติดตั้งไม่ว่าจะเป็นจอ LED นะครับหรือว่าสถานที่เตรียมความพร้อมเพื่อต้อนรับพี่น้องประชาชนจากทั่วทุกสารทิศครับในการติดตามวัดพระมหาธาตุวรมหาวิหารอย่างต่อเนื่องและเกาะติดไปพร้อมกับประเทศเกาหลีใต้ครับเชิญทุกท่านรับชมบรรยากาศและติดตามสำหรับการถ่ายทอดสดจากสำนักงานประชาสัมพันธ์จังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชครับ
Comme cela est démocratique exercé ici partout. Donc ça fait partie du dialogue et de la collaboration qui fait le
Historic Sultanates of the Comoros. Icomos, you have the floor.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Chair. This is the presentation of Icomos' evaluation of the Medinas of the historic sultanates of the Comoros, and the report of Icomos is in the document on the following slide. Sorry, on the previous slide, says the speaker. The serial property nominated comprises 6 sites which have conserved the vestiges of historic towns or medinas situated on the volcanic islands of Nzwani and Ngadzija in the Comoros. The medinas developed from urban nuclei which appeared around the 11th century and which evolved into city-states around the 14th and 15th centuries, and then became the main urban centers of the sultanates established in the archipelago of the Comoros in the context of the development of a Muslim elite related to the Swahili world. The nominated property, which encompasses urban architectural and intangible elements, reflects the wealth and specificity of the Swahili cultural tradition in the Comoran Island context. The former Sultan's Medinas maintained their morphology and their urban fabric of yore, as well as an exceptional ensemble of social traditions and practices which are still alive today. The 6 Medinas were selected from more than a dozen historic towns on the archipelago of the Comoros, which, although created on the same cultural and social bases, evolved along different trajectories forged by their geographic, political, social, and historical context. The nominated serial property comprises the best preserved parts of the selected historic towns. The buffer zones encompass the remaining parts of the Medinas. This is proposed for nomination as testimony to the Sultanate period in the Comoros between the 14th, 15th, and 19th centuries. Icomos feels that the serial property nominated illustrates much more than the existence of the political power of the sultans in the Comoros. It bears witness as well to a much longer urbanization process which went hand in hand with the Islamization of the archipelago and was initially forged under the regime of local chiefdoms. Consequently, the Medina selector should be considered as a representation of varied expressions of Comoran urban traditions. In this context, the comparative analysis confirmed the importance of the proposed serial property and highlighted the specificities of the urban traditions related to the historical trajectory and specific socio-cultural trajectory of the Comoros. Each component makes complementary contributions in terms of architecture, art, defensive systems, landscaping within a common cultural matrix. The nominated property demonstrates OUV on the basis of criteria 3 and 4. It bears witness to living cultural traditions and the social practices of the Comoros archipelago, which combines matrilineal and matrilocal customs, age group systems, and patrilineal Islamic traditions. And it highlights an ensemble of specific architectural and landscape responses, collectively attesting to the originality of Comoran urban traditions. Criterion 2 has not been demonstrated. The conditions of integrity and authenticity have been met, but both aspects are extremely vulnerable and they may be gravely threatened if appropriate conservation measures are not undertaken urgently and if monitoring measures are not established. Minor adjustments have been made to the boundaries of some components by the state party during the evaluation process. The legal protection of the property should be finalized in order to afford a sound and binding basis for management, conservation, monitoring, and coordination activities. Nonetheless, the steps taken until now are satisfactory, and the progress made in this connection by the state party during the evaluation period mean that we can envisage finalization in short order of the relevant legislative and regulatory texts. The management system should be further developed in order to adopt an integrated and collaborative approach across the whole of the nominated property. The existing traditional management system should also be incorporated into official administrative mechanisms. The state of conservation of the property is very vulnerable, and it needs urgent attention. An exhaustive assessment of the state of conservation of its attributes should be undertaken, as well as the development of an integrated conservation program. The State Party has pledged to meet these goals and is continuing its endeavours to strengthen cooperation with international experts in order to consolidate initiatives which have been implemented and to develop the requisite local capacity. And here is a summary of Icomos' evaluation regarding the OUV proposed for the property. In conclusion, Icomos recommends that the medinas of the historic sultanates of the Comoros should be inscribed on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 3 and 4, and it has included a number of additional recommendations in the draft decision in support of the long-term conservation of the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Icomos. And everybody knows that we don't have proposed amendment on this agenda item. So unless there is no objection, I therefore declare draft decision 48-AB-13 adopted. Thank you. Thank you very much, Excellencies. Dear colleagues, let me congratulate Comoros.
Comme cela est la pratique exercée ici par toi. Comme ça fait partie du dialogue et de la collaboration.
Chaque élément constitutif apporte des contributions paysages au sein d'une batterie sur la base des critères 3 et 4. Fête des Comores, qui combine des coutumes.
คือเอกสารที่เตรียม ที่แรกครับเป็นที่แรกของภาคใต้จังหรือไงเนาะโอเคครับ
Today, your vision, determination, and steadfast commitment has been richly rewarded. As one who had the distinct honor, as Chair has said, of serving as Ambassador of United Republic of Tanzania to the Union of Comoros before assuming my present responsibilities in Paris, I had the privilege of walking through these remarkable medinas. I experienced firsthand living communities where coral stone architecture, ancient mosques, historic palaces, and vibrant tradition continue to tell the remarkable story of centuries of exchange across the Indian Ocean. I saw a heritage that is not frozen in history, but alive in daily lives. customs, and aspiration of the Comorian people. That is why today's inscription is so meaningful. It recognizes not only magnificent architecture, but also the resilience of the people who have faithfully safeguarded their identity across generations. This inscription is far more than an international distinction. It's a victory for the people of Comoros, a victory for Africa, a victory for World Heritage Convention. It affirms identity, strengthens dignity, and inspires young people, promotes sustainable tourism, and demonstrates beyond that small island developing state possess heritage of truly outstanding universal value whose significance transcends national boundaries and belongs to all humankind. Allow me to conclude my address by congratulating our brothers and sisters across Ngazija, Nzuani, and Mwali Islands throughout the Comoro diaspora around the world. Today, Chair, the world has not bestowed greatness upon your heritage. Your heritage has always been great. Today, humanity has simply recognized its universal value. Congratulations to all those who took part in the process of inscribing the Medinas of the Sultanate of Comoros. I thank you, Chair.
I now give the floor to Republic of Korea on behalf of ASPAC Group. Republic of Korea, you have 2 minutes maximum.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Asia Pacific Group, the Republic of Korea wholeheartedly congratulates the Comoros on the inscription of the Medinas of the historic sultanates of Comoros, and particularly is honored to be here this historic day to Comoros and World Heritage Committee in the presence of the President of the Comoros. This distinctive city property embodies the urban and architectural traditions of matrilineal Islamic society shaped by the Indian Ocean Maritime Network. It also demonstrates how diverse external influences were reinterpreted and within the unique social and cultural traditions of the Comoros. As the first World Heritage property of the Comoros, this inscription makes a meaningful contribution to the geographical balance and representativeness of the World Heritage List. Once again, we extend our sincere great congratulations to the Comoros. Thank you.
Now Czechia, followed by Jamaica and Turkey. The Czechia on behalf of Group 2. Czechia, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Chair. I have the honor to speak on behalf of the members of the World Heritage Committee for Group 2, Azerbaijan, Poland, Czechia, and others, and we extend our warmest congratulations to the Comoros on the inscription of their first World Heritage property. We laud this not only for the Comoros, but also for better representativeness of African heritage and the Swahili urban heritage on the World Heritage List. The 6 historic Medinas, which are still alive and carried forward by their local communities, are now joining World Heritage, and it shows that this inscription is indissociable from the people who live there on a daily basis. We wish the Union of Comoros every success in conservation and transmission of this remarkable site to future generations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now next, Jamaica on behalf of GRULAC, Latin America and Caribbean. Jamaica, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Latin America and the Caribbean Group, Jamaica adds our sincere congratulations on the inscription of the Medinas of the historic sultanates of the State Party of Comoros. The site of Comoros represents an ensemble of historic urban centers that developed from early settlements shaped under the system of territorial chiefdoms. Jamaica commends the State Party on this strong nomination and the extensive work evident in its preparation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I now invite Turkey, representing Group 1. Turkey, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. We would like to commend the Union of Comoros for its dedicated efforts and the thorough work undertaken in preparing the nomination dossier for the Medinas of the Historic Sultanates of the Comoros. Turkey is pleased to support the inscription of the property and congratulates Union of Comoros on behalf of the first electoral group. The property bears an important testimony to centuries of exchanges across the Indian Ocean and to the dedication of local communities in preserving this exceptional heritage. We also recognize the challenges faced by the Union of Comoros, particularly in terms of human and financial resources. In this regard, we encourage the World Heritage Center and Icomos to continue providing, as appropriate and upon the state parties' request, the necessary technical assistance and capacity building support to facilitate the effective implementation of the recommendations contained in the decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I invite Lebanon as a representative on behalf of Iraq Group.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Chair. Lebanon would like to, on behalf of itself and the Arab Group, extend its congratulations to the Comoros for this first property inscribed. Medinas of historic sultanates. This is a historic moment, not just for the Comoros, but for the whole African continent and the Arab states. It displays the rich diversity of its heritage and its commitment to the conservation and transmission to future generations. Lebanon esteems that this recognition is deeply deserved and would like to extend congratulations to the people as well. And this is a source of inspiration for other countries as well, for the inscription of other properties elsewhere. It is a symbol of our shared heritage. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Now I have the honor and the great pleasure to give the floor to His Excellency Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of the Comoros, for a statement.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le
Thank you very much, Chair. Excellencies, Chair, ambassadors, distinguished delegates, honorable members, salam alaikum. Allow me, first of all, to thank you all for your congratulations. I would like to say that the Comoros have joined the World Heritage List. These sultanate city-states are born out of the meeting of the African world, the Arab and Persian world, and other worlds that year after year have shaped the Comoros. First of all, I would like to perhaps stray from protocol and tell you what this inscription means for me. Now, 6 of these cities have been recognized by this committee. And just like every one of my fellow nationals, I am a Comorian. And I am an heir of these public places, these mosques, of these cities. And I have always known that this archipelago has this history which conjugates Africa, the Persian world, India, Indonesia, and the Arab world. And so this is an intimate belief. And that is what really made me push for this inscription. And those that pray, that trade, that get married, and that pass on these traditions are those that keep this alive. Now, dancing, trade and merchants, this is all part of the history of sultanates that for centuries organized the cities that regulated merchant trade and that brought traditions and knowledge together. And this is rare continuity for urban history of this nature. And this is what's being recognized by this committee. And it is a beautiful confirmation that this heritage doesn't not just belong to our history, it belongs to our present and to our future. Now, this work could not have been possible without the support of partners who I'd like to thank. The Foundation Arrive, the School of Sayou, the France Heritage, and the Compagnons du Devoir. They all agreed to support us to make this inscription a source of development across all areas. And I would like to thank, in particular, the Republic of France, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the Sultanate of Oman that have supported this process since the beginning, and who have supported each diplomatic and technical step. And I would also like to thank the World Heritage Center and all of the experts that assessed our file with rigor that, of course, such a recognition requires. Dr. Bashafil, special thanks to you, our permanent delegate to UNESCO and his team. You all are fully committed to this shared success. Now, this is a source of pride. It's an affirmation of sovereignty over our own narrative, of our own history. We have often been a very active crossroads, a place of exchange, of trade, of knowledge, and we connected Eastern Africa, but also Persia and Arabia, and became a civilizational space. It was a space of development where we saw culture and heritage preservation that we are now protecting on this territory. And now all of this heritage will gain visibility and will spur on economic activity. Now, this pride belongs to us, to the stonework, to the mosques. It belongs to the knowledge of our older generations. It's about enriching it and transmitting it intact to future generations. Now we know the responsibility that comes with such recognition. Inscription on a World Heritage List opens up new duties, and my commitment is committed to make sure that each of these cities get management plans in line with UNESCO's guidelines and with the support of our partners, and that we will train our national experts, preserve our built heritage, and to ensure full participation of communities in the governance of this heritage, because it is communities that each day guarantee its survival. A national conservation center for arts and culture will prepare for this capacity building, sustainable capacity building on our territory. We will also ensure that this international recognition will have tangible benefits for local communities, of course, in full respect of their customs. This has a regional dimension as well, because Eastern Africa has other coastal and city-state villages. And so we hope that in the future we will be able to share our experience with neighboring countries that are committed to similar processes in order to preserve the heritage of our region. And lastly, I would like to thank the Republic of Korea for its hospitality and for the exemplary organization of this committee session. I'd like to thank each member of the committee for which, of course, brings together the international community together for the preservation of our heritage. I would like to thank UNESCO and all delegations that, through dialogue, have contributed to enriching this file. The Comoros show that this inscription shows that heritage does not belong to one country but to all. And we will show resolve and humility, and I would like to directly send a message to my fellow citizens in our country and across the diaspora. This is recognition of something that you have been able to do. You have been able to preserve this without expecting anything in return. You have shown that telling our stories is the best way of guaranteeing that heritage will survive centuries. Each one of you, I invite you all to come and wander about these cities, these medinas, to sit on a bench there and to really enjoy this built heritage. Thank you for your contributions. And this inscription is for all countries around the world. And I call on all countries to make this institution a lever of sustainable development of our country. And of course, I invite you at 6 p.m. to the Delegates Lounge to discuss our country further and to
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Excellence, Monsieur le Président.
To give the floor to His Excellency Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of the Comoros.
Et de notre héritage commun. Merci. Au peuple et au gouvernement comorien et également au pays arabe, continent africain et des États arabes. De son premier bien de la liste mondiale de l'État des Comores, qui combine des coutumes matrilinéaires.
Des projets d'amendement comme cela est la pratique exercée ici par un fois. Ça fait partie du dialogue et de la collaboration.
Chaque élément constitutif apporte des contributions au sein d'une batterie sur la base des critères 3 et 4 des Comores, qui combine des coutumes matrilinéaires sur la base des critères 3 et 4.
The decision 48 come AB.20. I now invite Icomos to present the nomination of rock mosques and associated sacred sites of Mangistau, Kazakhstan. Icomos, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. This is the presentation of the Icomos evaluation of the rock mosques and associated sacred sites of Mangistau in Kazakhstan. The Icomos report can be found in document INF AP1 on page 105 of the English version and 131 of the French version. The rock mosques and associated sacred sites of Mangistau are a nominated serial property composed of 5 very isolated and remote component parts located within the semi-desert landscape of the Mangostou and Östurt plateaus on the Mangostou Peninsula. They are Beket Ata, Chopin Ata, Karaman Ata, Shakpak Ata, and Sultan Epe, each associated with a Sufi master and date from the 12th to the 18th centuries. The complexes known locally as underground mosques are a particular type of structure created in natural caves, carved into steep rocks, or dug into the ground. They range from smaller structures to more complex spaces and have different architectural layouts and organization, including prayer halls, mihrabs, rooms for contemplation and self-reflection, multifunctional spaces, and tombs of saints. The complexes comprise courtyards, water sources, sacred trees, paths, and cemeteries, the latter dating from the 10th to the 20th centuries. Administratively, they belong to the Mangostou region. Shakpak Ata and Sultan Epe are located north of Aktau, near the Caspian Sea coast, while the other three, Beket Ata, Chopin Ata, and Karaman Ata, are further inland. The boundaries of the nominated serial property are delineated using the existing relief and geographical features and are drawn within the legally protected limits. Each nominated component part has a proposed buffer zone, and 3 of them have been revised during the evaluation process. Originating in the nomadic traditions of the Mangostou and Östurt plateaus, the nominated component parts represent a culture where Islamic Sufi spirituality organically evolved from more ancient practices of ancestor worship, landscape sacredness, and reverence for spiritual leaders. Central to the nominated property is the veneration of Sufi saints within the Yasawi order, a tradition sustained over centuries by Shirakshi, guardians who tend the graves of the saints and serve pilgrims, and ongoing pilgrimage rituals. The outstandingness of the nominated property lies in the deep association of saints with the identity of local nomadic communities, the strategic use of remote and dramatic terrain to intensify the pilgrim's journey, and its enduring status as an active place of worship. Unlike the simple ascetic cells found in many religious traditions, the nominated serial property features multi-roomed structures with distinct spatial and sensory qualities, accompanied by extensive necropolises. The continued presence of the Shirakshi, alongside the unbroken link to the original Sufi preachers, attests to the vitality of this tradition. The fact that pilgrims still actively perform these rituals makes the nominated property an outstanding example of a living syncretic cultural practice that has survived and thrived through the centuries. Despite some weaknesses, Icomos considers that the comparative analysis
พระบรมราชชนสัมพันธ์และที่การปฏิบัติหน้าที่พิธีกรครับเพื่อร่วมอูซานประเทศเกาหลีใต้โดยท่านอาจารย์สมมาตรกรอบแก้วช่วงนี้ก่อนจะเข้าสู่ในช่วงของการที่ประสงค์ใดให้สืบพงธรรมชาติสาธุท่านที่5คุณปฏิวัติจิตผมได้เปิดรายนามตามลำดับท่านที่1ที่3คุณทวัชพลวัฒนประเสริฐรติกุลสาราพิทยาภานเรศวราเทพยุรีกรมหลวงราชสมเด็จพระนางเจ้าสิริกิติ์พระบรมราชินีนาถพระบรมราชชนสัมพันธ์และที่การปฏิบัติหน้าที่พิธีกรครับเพื่อร่วมอูซานประเทศเกาหลีใต้โดยท่านอาจารย์สมมาตรกรอบแก้วช่วงนี้ก่อนจะเข้าสู่ในช่วงของการ เหตุประสงค์ใดให้สืบพงธรรมชาติสาธุท่านที่5คุณปฏิวัติจิตผมได้เอ่ยรายนามตามลำดับท่านที่1ที่3คุณทวัชพลวัฒนประเสริฐรติกุลสา
The rock mosques and associated within the semi-desert landscape of the Mangisto
landscape approach is applied. It should be supported by developing and implementing appropriate mechanisms that preserve the intimate and secluded nature of the nominated component parts while maintaining all aspects of its traditional management. Conservation and maintenance works are carried out with appropriate skills and expertise. However, some conservation interventions and contemporary adaptations have impacted the authenticity of the nominated property. Continuation of such approaches may seriously undermine its authenticity over time. Here is a summary of the Icomos evaluation of the proposed outstanding universal value of the nominated property. To conclude, Icomos recommends that the rock mosques and associated sacred sites of Mangisto, Kazakhstan, with the exception of component part M1, Beket Ata, be inscribed on the World Heritage List on the basis of Criterion 3, and has included a number of further recommendations in the draft decision to support the long-term conservation of the property. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for Icomos presentation. I'd like to know whether there are any comments concerning this nomination.
ซึ่งรู้สึกใจมากที่เราได้จากสถาบันราชภัฏนะครับที่มาร่วมในวันนี้นะครับทุกท่านหลังจากที่มีการลงมติแล้วนะครับคณะกรรมการที่วัดพระมหาธาตุมีอยู่แล้วนะครับอยู่ครั้งหนึ่งที่เกิดปัญหาจราจรรัฐบาลเยอรมันก็ตัดสินใจที่สร้าง
within the semi-desert landscape of the Mangisto
ต่อไปถ้าผิดเลยนะครับให้เป็นวาระของประเทศไทยนะครับเดี๋ยวฟังท่านประธาน
more fully reflect the significance of this remarkable serial property. In our view, the nominated property illustrates not only an exceptional testimony to a living cultural tradition of sacred landscapes, where Sufi Islamic practices interacted with the beliefs, memories, and social traditions of nomadic communities under Criterion 3, but also an important interchange of human values under Criterion 2. The serial property demonstrates how Islamic spiritual traditions interacted with cultural practices of Turkic nomadic societies, giving rise to a distinctive form of sacred cultural expressions that evolved over several centuries. For this same reason, Azerbaijan believes that the inclusion of the component number 1 of this serial nomination, the Beket Ata Rock Mosque, is important for preserving the historical continuity of the series. Rather than representing a separate phenomenon, Beket Ata Rock Mosque illustrates the continuity and expression of the sacred cultural traditions represented by series and completes the chronological narrative presented by the nomination. Therefore, Azerbaijan has submitted amendments aimed at, first, retaining criteria 2, secondly, maintaining the Beket Ata Rock Mosque as an integral component of the serial property. Building on our careful consideration of the nomination and having thoroughly reviewed the Icomos evaluation, Azerbaijan would like to ask the following question to the State Party of Kazakhstan. Icomos notes the conservation interventions undertaken at Beket Ata Rock Mosque, including the use of modern materials, and highlights the need to ensure that such measures do not compromise the authenticity and integrity of the property's key attributes. So the question is, could the State Party please clarify how the conservation approach at Beket Ata Rock Mosque balances structural stabilization with the preservation of its original materials and features? We would appreciate, Mr. Chairperson, if you could invite this State Party to answer the question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I regard Azerbaijan as the main proposer of the proposed amendment. So I'd like to give the priority to the committee members who are outside co-authorship. I recognize Lebanon, Kuwait, Bangladesh, Switzerland, and Togo. I now give the floor. Poland? Poland is a co-authorship, so a little later. So if it's not a point of order, I will give the Lebanon first. Okay, Poland.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'd like first to thank Icomos for its comprehensive evaluation of the Rock Mosque of Mengistu nomination file. At the same time, however, we wish to express some reservations regarding this evaluation, since the assessment of cultural properties is not a mathematical exercise. Such assessment inevitably involves a degree of professional judgment, and therefore there may be legitimate differences of opinion regarding the application of the criteria or the inclusion of a particular component within a serial nomination. While Icomos considered that the property meets criterion 3, it considered that criterion 2, that deals with exhibiting an important interchange of human values within a cultural area of the world, has not been demonstrated. We consider this conclusion is not justified. In its evaluation, Icomos recognizes that the nominated property, quote, testifies to the development and perpetuation of syncretic practice in nomadic populations beginning in the medieval period, and that the process of engaging with Islam was more of a mosaic with different communities, particularly those outside of large urban centers, engaging with the new faith in a range of ways. Icomos evaluation further recognizes that some component parts of the nominated property bear tangible traces of early nomadic cultures, and that the choice of rocks for the construction of a sacred place, for example, indicates an association with the cult of the god Mitra. However, since rock-carved mosques have rarely been found in Islamic architecture, Icomos considered that further research is needed to analyze the tangible traces of pre-Islamic traditions present at the nominated property. We are sorry to say that we don't share this conclusion. We come from a region of the world with a rich tradition in Islamic architecture and religious cultural expression. At this stage, we do not need an accumulation of academic studies or scholarly thesis to recognize that the property illustrates the development of a distinctive tradition of Islamic sacred landscapes, which reflects the adaptation of Islamic spirituality to the environmental, cultural, and social conditions of nomadic societies, giving rise to a sacred landscape in which rock-cut places of worship, associated necropolis, pilgrimage route, and enduring spiritual practices were integrated with pre-existing traditions of ancestor veneration. Hence, it is clear for us that the emergence of rock-carved mosques reflect the interchange between the material and spiritual culture of nomadic tribes inhabiting the area and the arrival of Muslim beliefs along with the practices of Sufism, and we consider that criterion 2 is fully justified. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At the later stage, if necessary, I'd like to give the floor to advisor group to answer any questions raised during our general statement. As I said earlier, after Lebanon, I now give the floor to Switzerland.
จากสถาบันราชภัฏนะครับที่มาร่วมในวันนี้นะครับทุกท่านหลังจากที่มีการลงมติแล้วนะครับคณะกรรมการที่วัดพระมหาธาตุมีอยู่แล้วนะครับอยู่ครั้งหนึ่งที่เกิดปัญหาจราจรรัฐบาลเยอรมันก็ตัดสินใจที่สร้าง
within the semi-desert landscape of the Manchester
นิดนึงนะครับฟังนิดนึงต่อไปถ้าไม่ผิดเลยนะครับนั่นเป็นวาระของประเทศไทยนะครับเดี๋ยวฟังท่านประธานขอเชิญไอคอมประการที่2ก็คือการลดระดับลงของน้ำใต้ดินผาทะเลได้มาทำการวัดความเอียงที่เราไม่ทราบว่าเพิ่งเอียงในภายหลังหรือเอียงมาตั้งแต่เริ่มสร้างและหลังจากนั้นก็จะมีการบรรเลงเจ้าหน้าที่มันเป็น%นิดนึงครับที่สำหรับการลดระดับรูปทรงสันฐานข้างในเป็นอย่างไรนะครับก็เรากันไปต่างๆนานานี่ก็เป็นสิ่งท้าทายคือหนึ่งจากแรงสั่นสะเทือนจาก
Une spatialement recherche de l'État qui vient de voir 6 de ces planètes nègres comme entre l'Afrique, le monde. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Excellence, Monsieur le Président.
To give the floor to His Excellency Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of the Commonwealth.
Et de notre héritage commun. Merci. Au peuple et au gouvernement comorien et également au pays arabe, continent africain et État arabe. De son premier lien sur la liste du patrimoine mondial de des Comores, qui combine des coutumes matrilinéaires.
Le projet d'amendement, comme cela est la pratique exercée ici par un droit. Donc ça fait partie du dialogue et de la collaboration.
Chaque élément constitutif apporte des contre-paysages au sein d'une batterie sur la base des critères 3 et 4. Page des Comores, qui combine des coutumes matrilinéaires sur la base des critères.
Poland wishes to congratulate Kazakhstan on the nomination of a rock mosque and the associated sacred sites of Mangistau. This unique property constitutes an exceptional testimony to the syncretic Sufi traditions born from the integration of nomadic practices and Islamic spirituality. However, we wish to express our support for the inclusion of a component part Beket Ata in the final inscription for the following reasons. First, Property presents integrity of a spiritual narrative. Beketata is a fundamental pillar of a spiritual landscape of the Mangistau Peninsula. As a sacred complex associated with a prominent Sufi master, it is essential for demonstrating the fusion of Sufi spirituality with ancient traditions of ancestors' worship and landscape sacralization. Second, property also presents a living cultural tradition. The EOV of this property is defined by its status as an active place of worship, and Bekedata remains one of the most vibrant destinations for ongoing pilgrimage rituals, making it a primary example of a living syncretic cultural practice. Third, it represents traditional custodianship as the property's management relies heavily on the Shirakshi, guardians of a sacred place, who have maintained an unbroken link to the original Sufi preachers for centuries. This traditional management system is fully operational at the Beket Atta, aligning perfectly with the protection and management requirements outlined for the entire series. Furthermore, we wish to highlight the following points in support of the retention of Criterion 2. First, Poland recognizes the profound significance of a long-term interchange between Islamic spirituality, specifically the Yasawi Sufi tradition, and the nomadic tradition of the Turkic communities in the Aral-Caspian region. This interaction has created a unique cultural synthesis that is central to the property's value. Second, tangible evidence in the landscape is represented as the extensive necropolises serve as a clear and substantial representation of this interchange combining Islamic burial traditions with artistic forms, symbols, and expressions characteristic of nomadic societies. These layered identities provide the tangible evidence required to justify Criterion 2. To conclude, Poland believes that acknowledging this interchange through Criterion 2 is essential to fully capturing the cultural phenomenon of this sacred landscape. Thank you, Mr. President.
Azerbaijan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, this would be a response with regards to the Criterion 2. We consider that the Criterion 2 reflects a clearly documented cultural interchange between Islamic Sufi spirituality and the traditions of the nomadic communities of Mangistau. And as it has also been clearly mentioned by distinguished representative of Poland, that Islam reached this region not through a major urban center, but within a landscape shaped by nomadic mobility, clan identity, ancestor remembrance, and recognition of particular natural places as sacred. This interaction is clearly visible in the architecture itself, Mr. Chair, which is expressed in the organization of each component part. The rock-cut place of worship is connected with an associated necropolis, pilgrimage paths, water sources, and surrounding natural setting. These elements do not function separately, Mr. Chair. Together they form a coherent, sacred landscape shaped by both Islamic religious practice and the cultural traditions of nomadic communities. Islamic inscriptions occur alongside tribal emblems, traditional ornaments, and representations associated with nomadic culture, including stylized images of the ram. This demonstrates how Islamic burial practices were not simply copied, but were interpreted through local artistic forms and established traditions of commemorating ancestors, supported by more than 70 years of archaeological, architectural, and historical research. Mr. Chair, we therefore consider that the nominated property provides clear, tangible, and scientifically documented evidence of the long-term interchange of human values required under Criterion 2. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. On my list, Bangladesh, Kuwait, Togo, Grenada, Mongolia, Armenia, Kenya, Turkey, Togo, Peru, Senegal, Vietnam, Tanzania. 13 more speakers to go. We have nomination files after Kazakhstan is Mongolia, Thailand, Denmark, Russian Federation, and Tunisia. So there are more than 14 co-sponsors. So as I requested you, just as brief as you can. So with your permission, I'd like to ask you just less than maximum 2 minutes, okay? Even less, maximum. I now give the floor to Bangladesh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We take note of your request and we will finish it within 20 seconds. Bangladesh would like to add its name in the list of co-authors. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Now, Kuwait.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We will make our statement as brief as possible. Kuwait welcomes the opportunity to consider properties that reflect remarkable diversity of Islamic cultural heritage, as witnessed in the nomination of the Rock Mosque of Mangistau. The remarkable mosque presented to us by the State Party of Kazakhstan demonstrates that Islamic places of worship did not develop according to a single architectural model. In this region, spiritual and religious function were adapted to the geology of the semi-desert landscape and to the social and cultural tradition of nomadic communities. This resulted in a distinctive form of architecture that is both locally rooted and relevant to the wider history of Islam. This process of adaptation and cultural interaction provides a convincing basis for criterion 2. Kuwait also considers Piket Atta indispensable to the nominated series. It embodies the later continuation of the tradition and remains one of its most active centers of pilgrimage. Its presence confirms that the property represents not only historical testimony, but also a living spiritual heritage. Kuwait therefore supports the proposed amendment in its entirety. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, as I said earlier, some different views or opinions should be duly heard. So, from next speakers on, who are supporting draft decision, very, very brief once again. Otherwise, just suggest more constructive wording, with very briefly. Now I give the floor to Togo.
Merci, Monsieur le
Thank you, Chair. Togo notes with interest that this site shows the dynamic mix of the Sufi tradition and the Aral-Caspian region, which strengthens the validity of criterion 2 and the fact that it fits within a still active spiritual tradition further strengthens its validity under criterion 3. We also note that the provisions on legal aspects and integrated management plan.
Okay,
qui ont façonné siècle après siècle l'âme de la jeunesse. Je ne suis pas seulement le chef de l'État qui vient de voir 6 de ses successeurs tanès, nés de la entre l'Afrique, le monde. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Excellence, Monsieur le Président.
To give the floor to His Excellency Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of the Commonwealth.
Et de notre héritage commun. Merci. Au peuple et au gouvernement comorien et également au pays arabe, continent africain et des États arabes. De son premier lien sur la liste du patrimoine mondial de l'UNESCO. Des Comores, qui combine des coutumes matrilinéaires.
Projet d'amendement, comme cela est la pratique exercée ici 23. Comme ça fait partie du dialogue et de la collaboration.
Chaque élément constitutif apporte des contre-paysages au sein d'une batterie sur la base des critères 3 et 4. Page des Comores, qui combine des coutumes matrilinéaires sur la base des critères 3 et 4.
Later phase of the tradition and confirms its continued spiritual relevance. Therefore, Kenya supports the amendments in their entirety. I thank you.
Okay, thank you, Turkey.
Thank you, Chairman. The property represents an important testimony to the cultural and spiritual history of the wider Turkic world. Turkey attaches particular significance to the legacy of Hoca Ahmet Yesevi, whose teachings profoundly influenced the development of Islamic spirituality across Central Asia and far beyond. Turkey welcomes the proposed inscription of the property. At the same time, we believe that draft decision could better reflect the full scope of its OUV. The 5 component parts illustrate the continuity of a sacred cultural tradition over several centuries. In this regard, Beketata represents an important later manifestation of the sacred cultural tradition. Turkey also considers that criterion 2 is relevant to the nominated property. For these reasons, Turkey supports the amendments aimed at retaining Beketata within the serial property and recognizing the property also under criterion 2. In addition, Turkey is of the view that there is substantive rationale for the series of property also to be given consideration under criterion 6. The nominated property embodies enduring spiritual traditions, living pilgrimage practices, and a profound association with beliefs and cultural traditions that continue to hold exceptional significance for communities today. These living associations appear to constitute an important dimension of the property's OUV. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Pero, please.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chair. We are co-authors of this amendment, so we just want to support what was already said by Azerbaijan.
Okay, thank you very much. Senegal, please.
Monsieur le Président. Chair, Senegal enthusiastically welcomes the nomination of the Mangistau rock mosques as a remarkable contribution to Islamic cultural diversity on the World Heritage List. Having carefully examined the nomination file and Icomos' evaluation, we feel that the property bears witness to the development and perpetuation of syncretic practices in the nomadic peoples ever since the Middle Ages. And this process has followed a different mosaic from one community to another. We're showing that Islam has developed in a diverse way. It also shows the complex spiritual developments in the region, shows the importance of the property. It is part of a series, and it is a necessary extension of the property, reflecting medieval origins and later uses, and strengthening coherence and exhaustiveness of the candidacy of the nomination. This crucial role does not need to be demonstrated, and in the same way, We support the amendments which keep Beket Ata in the list and in the inscription and supports the nomination. Thank
you. Thank you. Vietnam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To be brief, we reiterate our support and our co-authorship of the amendments proposed by Azerbaijan. Thank you.
Thank you. Tanzania.
Thank you, Chair. The United Republic of Tanzania welcomes this nomination, which illustrates close relationship between cultural tradition, spiritual practices, and the natural environment. The communities of Mangistau did not simply reproduce established forms of religious architecture. They developed places of worship that responded directly to the geological condition of the region and to their own social and cultural context. This process of adaptation and exchange is an important aspect of the property's significance and, in our view, supports Criteria 2. Beket Ata should also remain within the series. It extends the chronological scope of the nomination and demonstrates the continuing vitality of the pilgrimage tradition. The United Republic of Tanzania supports the proposed amendments by Azerbaijan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. As the last speaker, Jamaica.
Thank you, Chair. Jamaica reiterates its support for the inscription of the Rock Mosque and associated sacred site of Mengistu under Criteria 2 and 3 with the inclusion of the full series, and commends the State Party of Kazakhstan for this nomination. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Now we have heard all committee members. Now let's proceed to adopt the draft decision. During the general statement, there was one question posed by committee member. So I'd like to give the floor to Kazakhstan very briefly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We are grateful to you for giving us the floor and for the questions asked and the opportunity to address this committee. The rock mosques and associated sacred sites of Mangistau represent a remarkable cultural phenomenon reflecting centuries-long sacred traditions integrated with semi-desert landscape on nomadic lifeways. The property includes sites with modest prayer niches, crypt burials, carefully arranged courtyards, extensive necropolises, pilgrimage routes, water sources from a coherent sacred landscapes. These features express the interaction of Islamic spirituality, particularly the Yasawi Sufi tradition with Turkic nomadic cultural practices. So the organization of space, symbols, inscriptions, and burial arrangements, in our view, illustrates the exchange of human values over time, as indicated by our friends from Azerbaijan, demonstrating the property's significance under Criterion 2. Regarding conservation, there were some modern materials partially applied in the past, including during the Soviet period, to the certain elements of the infrastructure of monuments. All current and future interventions, conservation interventions, employ specialized local mortars based on chalk and marl, developed under the guidance of Dr. Lyudmila Dubrovskaya, and scientifically tested for compatibility and long-term performance. This approach ensures the preservation of authenticity, integrity, and the unique attributes of the property. The information has already been submitted to the World Heritage Center and Icomos. Regarding the component 1 of the serial nomination, Beket Ata Rock Mosque, it is the most visited site and the starting point of the main pilgrimage route. It maintains the continuous spiritual and cultural line linking all monuments in the series. The site and its associated saints reflect the Yasawi Sufi order, and the names of followers commemorated at the monuments confirm their historical adherence to the tradition of Hoja Ahmed Yasavi, the prominent Central Asian medieval Sufi figure, ensuring the integrity, coherence, and living significance to the property. So concluding, through these measures, we want to further commit to protecting the property while preserving its authenticity, cultural, and spiritual values for the future generations. And we thank once again the advisory bodies for their cooperation and the World Heritage Center. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And the Republic of Korea, you want to speak? Okay, Republic of Korea.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just the Republic of Korea supports Azerbaijan's amendment and so already joined the co-authorship of the amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Finally, we concluded. Now let's proceed with the adoption draft decision for the Icom AB.20 on screen. As we heard during the general debate, and we witnessed overwhelming majority of supporting proposed draft decision on screen. So can we be in agreement with the adoption for the ICOM-AP.20 as amended as a whole? Just scroll down slowly. Okay. Okay. With your overwhelming support, agreement, I declare draft decision for the Icom 8B.20 adopted as amended as a whole. Okay, thank you very much. Let me congratulate Kazakhstan on behalf of the entire committee for the inscription of this property. Kazakhstan, you have the floor for a brief 2-minute statement. Thank you.
Distinguished Chairperson, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Republic of Kazakhstan, thank you. To the members of the World Heritage Committee, we are deeply grateful for your decision. To UNESCO and Icomos, thank you for your careful evaluation, to your open dialogue, your trust. Today is a especially meaningful day for Kazakhstan. President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev called the sharing heritage of Mangistau with the world. Today, that vision has become a reality. 22 years after the Petroglyphs of Tamgaly, Kazakhstan's cultural heritage returns to the World Heritage List. We return with great pride and with deep appreciation. For centuries, the rock mosques and sacred sites of Mangistau stood between the desert and the sea. They were not only places of prayer, but also places of learning. During difficult times, people come here in search of knowledge, wisdom, water, and peace. These stones carry the memory of our ancestors. Today, that memory becomes part of shared heritage of all humanity. This inscription is a moment of deep significance for our nation. It reminds us of our history, our cultural identity, and our contribution to the heritage of the world. This honor also brings responsibility. We are committed to protecting these sacred places and preserving them for future generations, for our children, and for the children of the world. Kazakhstan will fully honor its commitments under the World Heritage Convention. We will continue to work closely with UNESCO, Icomos, and all our international partners. We invite you all to visit Kazakhstan. Thank you again.
Okay, congratulations once again. Excellencies, dear colleagues, I now invite Icomos to present the nomination of the cemetery complexes of the Xiongnu nobility, Mongolia. Icomos, you have the floor.
This is the presentation of the Icomos evaluation of the cemetery complexes of the Xiongnu nobility, Mongolia. The Icomos report can be found in document INF 8B1 on page 142 of the English version and page 172 of the French version. Next slide. This nominated serial property comprises 8 funerary complexes of the Xiongnu nobility. The Xiongnu established a powerful empire between the 3rd century BCE and the 2nd century CE that eventually occupied a vast territory centered on what is now the modern state of Mongolia. Next slide. They interacted with the Han Chinese and controlled nodes along the main parts of the steppe route of the Silk Roads. Among the numerous archaeological traces throughout the area occupied by the empire are their cemeteries which provide insights into their burial culture. Of substantial size and depth, some of them around 20 meters deep, the main burials are associated with satellite graves, with small ring-shaped mounds, as well as sacrificial structures made up of lines of stone pairs. Next slide. A wide range of artifacts, including horse tack and chariots, weapons, tools, and food for the afterlife, accompany the dead. The tombs of their nobility highlight the engineering and organizational skills of this mainly nomadic culture. Next slide. The 8 component parts are delineated with boundaries that comply with national legislation. Next slide. The initial delineation of the boundaries of the nominated component parts and buffer zones were amended and extended by the State Party in response to questions raised by Icomos. Next slide. The cemetery complexes of the Xiongnu nobility testify in an exceptional way to the extinct Xiongnu funerary culture. They provide insights into the burial customs, rituals, established traditions, and tomb construction of the Xiongnu nobles. Next slide. Furthermore, they highlight the engineering and organizational skills of this mainly nomadic culture. The nominated serial property is an exceptional expression of and the richest source of insight into the way of life and social structure of this culture of the Central Asian steppe. Next slide. The Xiongnu Empire was administratively and territorially divided into 3 regions, Eastern, Western, and Central, and the 8 nominated component parts reflect these divisions. In terms of the scale and number of burials, the nominated component parts encompass the largest and most representative cemetery complexes within their respective regions. The component parts together constitute a representative selection of different geographical, chronological, and typological features. While some of the features of Xiongnu tombs are shared with neighboring cultures, existing differences identify the Xiongnu tombs as an outstanding and independent development. Next slide. The nominated property demonstrates outstanding universal value on the basis of criterion 3. Next slide. The conditions of integrity and authenticity have been met. Specific recommendations have been formulated by Icomos concerning the exploration of the relationship between the burials and their wider setting. Further research is recommended to clarify whether future boundary adjustments will be necessary. Next slide. The nominated serial property is legally protected at both national and provincial levels. All of the component parts fall within the jurisdiction of the State Party. Local authorities are legally responsible for the protection of the sites. Next slide. A World Heritage Protection Administration will be created, modeled after the already existing Special Protection Administration of the Noyon Ul Protected Area, where 3 of the component parts are located. This management structure will implement the management plan for the cemetery complexes of the Xiongnu nobility in cooperation with the Special Protection Administration of the Noyon Ul Protected Area and with professional guidance and recommendations from the Mongolian National Committee for World Heritage. Next slide. Numerous tombs have been looted since the fall of the Xiongnu Empire. The national authorities are currently making efforts to mitigate this threat. Next slide. Here is a summary of the Icomos evaluation of the proposed outstanding universal value of the nominated property. Next slide. To conclude, Icomos recommends that the cemetery complexes of the Xiongnu nobility, Mongolia, be inscribed on the World Heritage List on the basis of criterion 3, and has included a number of further recommendations in the draft decision to support the long-term conservation of the property. Next slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much for wonderful video presentation on Mongolia. I now invite you to adopt the draft decision for the Icom AB.22. So, as is customary, Madam Ashley Jones, we have a proposed amendment.
Thank you, Chair. No, we don't.
Okay. With no objection from the floor, I therefore declare draft decision for the Icom AB.22 adopted. Okay, thank you very much. Excellencies, dear colleagues, let me congratulate Mongolia on behalf of the entire committee for the inscription of this property. Mongolia, you have the floor for a brief 2-minute statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the occasion of the inscription,
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Excellence, Monsieur le Président.
To give the floor to His Excellency Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of the Commonwealth.
Et de notre héritage commun. Merci. Au peuple et au gouvernement comorien et également au pays arabe, continent africain et à l'État arabe. De son premier bien sur la liste du patrimoine mondial de l'UNESCO. Des Comores, qui combine des coutumes matrilineaires.
Projet d'amendement, comme cela est la pratique exercée ici par un droit. Comme ça fait partie du dialogue et de la collaboration.
Chaque élément constitutif apporte des contributions au sein d'une matrice sur la base des critères 3 et 4. Fête des Comores, qui combine des coutumes matrilineaires sur la base des critères 3 et 4.
ไทยครับต้องทำเป็น nomination dossier ส่งไปอาจารย์ดร.กมลทิพย์คล้ายบ้างไหมปรบมือดังๆหน่อยฮะนะครับถ้า10,000ขณะนี้มีการไลฟ์นะครับสดจากเกาหลีนะครับยอดชมตอนนี้อยู่ที่ได้แต่ขอ3 แฮชแท็กเพื่อเปิดการมองเห็นผมในนามนครศรีธรรมราชทุกภาคส่วนแต่ท่านสมชายลีลาน้อยผู้ว่าการจังหวัดมีท่านอดีตรองผู้ว่าการจังหวัดด้วยไม่มีวันเกษียณนะครับเราร่างคำแถลงการประกาศนะครับผู้ใหญ่เยอะแดดร้อน
Permission, I'd like to ask you.
หลายคนบอกว่านานจัดรอกันมาเกือบ20 ปีฉะนั้นนิดเดียวเรารอ
รายการครับหลังจากนี้ก็ไม่ได้ประธานก็คงจะต้องบีบกระชับเวลาครับถูกต้องจบไปใน
the provisions on legal
Okay, thank you. Congratulations to Mongolia. Excellencies, dear colleagues, I now invite Icomos to present the nomination of Wat Phra Mahathat Oramaha Vihan Nakhon Thammarat, Thailand. But before I give the floor to the Secretariat, Mr. Balsamo, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is to inform the committee that a notification of factual errors in the evaluation report relating to the nomination of Wat Phra Mahathat Oramaha Nakhon Thammarat from Thailand has been received and it is included in document INF 8B4 and is to be found on page 39. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Balsamo. Icomos, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. This is the presentation of the Icomos evaluation of Wat Phra Mahathat Oramaha Nakhon Thammarat, Thailand. The Icomos report can be found in document INF.8B1 on page 155 of the English version and page 204 of the French version. On this evaluation, Icomos has received a letter on factual errors and has acknowledged some of these errors. Wat Phra Mahathat Oramaha, also known as Phra Mahathat Monastery, is a Theravada Buddhist monastery located in Nakhon Thammarat province in Peninsular Thailand. It has been a regional Buddhist center since its foundation around the late 8th century. Following the layout prescribed in the Tipitaka, the Pali Canon, the nominated property comprises religious buildings, including the Great Reliquary, with satellite stupas, various functional structures, 2 Bodhi tree shrines, and the sacred crystal beach on which the monastery is built, as well as residential monastic buildings. The monastery has for centuries been patronized by royal families and has served as a spiritual center for local communities and believers in the region. The nominated property covers the entire monastery. The original buffer zone included the old town from the Ayutthaya period. Upon Icomos' request, the state party has expanded the buffer zone to cover the historical community area and the important views, and demarcated a height control zone to enhance the protection. Icomos welcomes this initiative, which is expected to be legally completed by 2029. Benefiting from the transoceanic trade, the monastery has been influenced by various religious and architectural traditions, including Brahmanism, Hinduism, and Mahayana and Theravada Buddhism from northeastern India, central Java, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and the Mu region of southern Myanmar. These influences have been integrated into its religious buildings, rituals, and cultural traditions. The outcomes of this religious and cultural fusion constitute an exceptional testament to the interchange of human values and have had a lasting influence on religious buildings in subsequent dynasties in other regions of Thailand, Myanmar, and Malaysia. As the testimony to diverse belief system and the spiritual center of Nakhon Thammarat, Wat Phra Mahathat is the heart of associated living traditions such as the Nora dance and the chronicles, which are of outstanding universal significance. The comparative analysis, which was strengthened during the evaluation process, establishes the exceptionality of the religious buildings as represented by the Great Reliquary in receiving and blending the various religious, artistic, and architectural expressions. Icomos considers that the comparative analysis justifies the consideration of the property for the World Heritage List. Within this context, the outstanding universal value has been demonstrated on the basis of criterion 2 and 6. The conditions of authenticities and integrities have been met. Traditional materials and techniques have been used in the past restoration, which preserve the original forms of religious buildings. The word Pramahata is still active, continuing its associated traditions. Legal protection is in place and adequate. The nominated property is inscribed on the list of national ancient monuments and has been registered in the Royal Gazette in 1936 and 2024, and benefits from the highest level of protection at the national level. The management system is adequate and is benefiting from strong community involvement. The management plan of Wat Pramahata 2026 to 2030 is in place and is supported by the risk management plan and the tourism management plan. Conservation and daily maintenance are adequate, and the monitoring system is effective. The religious buildings have been well attended and cared for through repeated restorations in history. In recent decades, heritage conservation principles have been introduced with the aim of preserving the authenticity of the nominated property. Here is a summary of the Icomos evaluation of the proposed outstanding universal value of the nominated property. To conclude, Icomos recommends that Wat Pramahata Wrmhavihan, Nakhon Thammarat, Thailand, be inscribed on the World Heritage List on the basis of criterion 2 and 6, and has included a number of further recommendations in the draft decision to support the long-term conservation of the property. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Icomos. I now invite you to adopt draft decision for the 8th AP.23. But as is customary, Ms. Ashley Jones, we have an amendment?
Thank you, Chair. No amendment.
Okay, thank you. With your strong support, I declare draft decision for the ACOM AP.23 adopted. Thank you very much, Excellencies, dear colleagues. Let me congratulate Thailand on behalf of the entire committee for the inscription of this property. Thailand, you have the floor for a brief 2-minute statement. Thank you.
ครับเรียนท่านประธานสมาชิกคณะกรรมการมรดกโลกท่านผู้มีเกียรติท่านสุภาพบุรุษสุภาพสตรีที่เคารพทุกท่านนะครับในนามของรัฐบาลไทยนะครับแล้วก็คณะผู้แทนชาวไทย ที่อยู่ในที่นี้นะครับก็ผมขอแสดงความขอบคุณอย่างจริงใจต่อคณะกรรมการและผู้เกี่ยวข้องทุกท่านนะครับที่ตระหนักถึงคุณค่าความสำคัญของวัดพระมหาธาตุวรมหาวิหารจังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชนะครับและการตัดสินใจให้ขึ้นทะเบียนมรดกโลกในวันนี้นะครับรัฐบาลไทยได้ทุ่มเททำงานอย่างหนักมานานกว่า10 กว่าปีเพื่อการเสนอขอรับการขึ้นทะเบียนเป็นแหล่งมรดกโลกในครั้งนี้โดยเป็นความพยายามร่วมกันของหลายหน่วยงานรวมทั้งชุมชนที่เกี่ยวข้องซึ่งแหล่งมรดกโลกแห่งใหม่นี้เป็นแหล่งที่9ของไทยและที่สำคัญคือเป็นแหล่งมรดกโลกทางวัฒนธรรมแห่งแรกที่ตั้งอยู่ทางภาคใต้ของประเทศไทยชาวไทยทุกท่านทุกคนมีความภาคภูมิใจเป็นอย่างยิ่งนะครับที่วัดพระมหาธาตุนะครับได้รับการยอมรับในคุณค่าความโดดเด่นอันเป็นสากลในฐานะศูนย์กลางของพุทธศาสนาในระดับภูมิภาคในช่วงศตวรรษที่ 8ท้ายที่สุดนี้นะครับรัฐบาลไทยขอขอบคุณคณะกรรมการมรดกโลกและผู้เกี่ยวข้องทุกท่านเป็นอย่างยิ่งสำหรับความทุ่มเทและความมุ่งมั่นในการดำเนินการตามพันธกรณีของอนุสัญญาคุ้มครองมรดกโลกที่สำคัญขอขอบคุณในความร่วมมือของ Icomos นะครับต่อความเชี่ยวชาญที่ทำให้มั่นใจว่าการนำเสนอของประเทศไทยในครั้งเป็นไปตามที่กำหนดประเทศไทยตระหนักดีนะครับว่าการขึ้นทะเบียนมรดกโลกเป็นเพียงจุดเริ่มต้นของความรับผิดชอบในการบำรุงรักษาปกป้องอนุรักษ์แหล่งมรดกโลกแห่งนี้เพื่อคนรุ่นปัจจุบันและในอนาคตขอขอบคุณครับ
I thank you again and congratulations to Thailand. Excellencies, dear colleagues, I now invite IUCN to present the nomination of the bonyfish parcels of the Western Rim Fjord, Evolution and Climate Adaptation in the earliest Ecocene, Denmark. IUCN, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. IUCN's evaluation can be found on the pages indicated on the slide. The bony fish fossils of the Western Lim Fjord, evolution and climate adaptation in the earliest Eocene, is nominated by Denmark under Natural Criterion 8. IUCN recommends that the committee inscribe this serial property on the World Heritage List under Criterion 8. The nominated property is a serial nomination comprising two component parts.
นี่คือการประเมินโดย Icomos นะครับต่อวัดพระมหาธาตุ
The Icomos report can be found in document INDOC 8B1 on page 155 of the English version and page 204 of the French version. On this evaluation, Icomos
สมเป็นด่านด้านใต้ในองค์ราพร้อมกันพึงรักษาเกียรติไว้ต้อนรับงานในวันนี้แม้จะเปลี่ยนแปลงจาก 26 กรกฎาคมคือวันพรุ่งนี้จริงๆแล้วคุณพระราชธรรมสุธีท่านเจ้าคุณพระเทพวิญญาภรณ์จนเป็นก็ถ่ายทอดเสียงอยู่ออกส่วนกลางด้วย หลายคนบอกว่านานจังมีท่านอดีตรองผู้ว่าราชการจังหวัดด้วยแม้จะ30,000ขนาดนี้
มีการไลฟ์นะครับสดจากเกาหลีนะครับยอดชมตอนนี้อยู่ที่
communities and believers in the region. Exceptionality of the religious buildings of associated living traditions, such as the Nora dance and the Chronicle, Myanmar and Malaysia. As a testimony to diverse beliefs, Icomos welcome this initiative, which is expected to of the French version. On this evaluation, Icomos has received a letter of factual errors and has acknowledged some of these errors. Dpra Maha Thát, Wrm also known as Pramahasa Monastery, is a Theravada Buddhist monastery located in Nakhon-Si, Thammarat province in Peninsular Thailand. It has been a regional Buddhist center since its foundation around the late 8th century. Following the layout prescribed in the Tipitaka, the Palikanda denominated property comprises religious buildings, including the Great Vatican, with satellite stupas.
จากสถาบันราชภัฏนะครับที่มาร่วมในวันนี้นะครับทุกท่านหลังจากที่มีการลงมติแล้วนะครับคณะกรรมการที่วัดพระมหาธาตุมีอยู่แล้วนะครับอยู่ครั้งหนึ่งที่เกิดปัญหาจราจรรัฐบาลเยอรมันก็ตัดสินใจที่สร้าง
within the semi-desert landscape of the Manchester and
นิดนึงต่อไปก็จะปิดคิวนะครับให้เป็นวาระของประเทศไทยนะครับเดี๋ยวฟังท่านประธานขอเชิญไอคอน
The rock mosques and associated
ไทยครับต้องทำเป็น nomination dossier ส่งไปอาจารย์ดร.กมลทิพย์คล้ายกันปรบมือดังๆหน่อยนะครับถ้าหมื่นขนาดนี้มีการไลฟ์นะครับสดจากเกาหลีนะครับยอดชมตอนนี้อยู่ที่ได้แต่ขอ3 แฮชแท็กเพื่อเปิดการมองเห็นผมในนามนครศรีธรรมราชทุกภาคส่วนแต่ท่านสมชายลีลาน้อยผู้ว่าการจังหวัดมีท่านอดีตรองผู้ว่าราชการจังหวัดด้วยไม่มีวันเกษียณนะครับเรา
ร่างคำแถลงการประกาศนะครับผู้ใหญ่เดี๋ยวแจกของขออธิบายครับจะเป็นยาวมาก
Permission, I'd like to ask you.
จะพูดวันนั้นได้ดีๆนะ
หลายคนบอกว่านานจังรอกันมาเกือบ20 ปีฉะนั้นนิดเดียวเรารอ
รายการครับหลังจากนี้ครับประธานก็คงจะต้องดีกระชับเวลาครับ
of the French version. On this evaluation, Icomos has received a letter of factual errors and has acknowledged some of these errors. Dpra Maha Thát, Wrm also known as Pramahasa Monastery, is a Theravada Buddhist monastery located in Nakhon-Si, Thammarat province in Peninsular Thailand. It has been a regional Buddhist center since its foundation around the late 8th century. Following the layout prescribed in the Tipitaka, the Palikanda denominated property comprises religious buildings, including the Great Vatican, with satellite stupas, various functional dams, and chronicles, which are supported by the Risk Management Fund. Conservation and daily maintenance are adequate, and the monitor system and the care through repeated restorations in history. In recent decades, a number of further recommendations in the draft decision.
Draft decision 48 AP 23 adopted. Let me congratulate Thailand on behalf of the entire committee for the inscription of this property. Thailand, you have the floor for the brief 2-minute statement. Thank you.
Congratulations, Malaysia.
Nominated properties are single nomination comprising two components on the island fort. Together.
น้องๆเด็กและเยาวชนเดี๋ยวเราไปดูการแจกของที่ระลึกก่อน
ข
น้องๆเด็กและเยาวชนเดี๋ยวเราไปดูการแจกของที่ระลึกก่อน
ครับก็ต้องขอขอบคุณสำคัญสุดคือผมว่าพี่น้องประชาชนชาวจังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชนะครับแล้วก็ทางหน่วยงานราชการในจังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชนะครับซึ่งเราร่วมกันผลักดันนะครับแล้วก็ร่วมกันที่จะขอเสนอเป็นมรดกโลกทางวัฒนธรรมตั้งแต่ปี 2556 นะครับซึ่งเราเริ่มกันมาเนี่ยระยะเวลา 10 กว่าปี ก็ทำต่อเนื่องมาหลายรัฐบาลแล้วก็มาสำเร็จในรัฐบาลท่านนายกอนุทินชาญวิรุฬกุลในครั้งนี้นะครับต้องขอขอบคุณทุกภาคส่วนจริงๆนะครับโดยกระทรวงสำคัญก็มีทั้งกระทรวงทรัพยากรธรรมชาติสิ่งแวดล้อมนะครับกระทรวงวัฒนธรรมนะครับซึ่งเป็นแนวการผลักดันขับเคลื่อนในการที่จะนำเสนอแล้วก็ในการที่จะทำให้ผ่านเกณฑ์ในการที่จะได้รับขึ้นทะเบียนเป็นมรดกโลกทางวัฒนธรรมแห่งแรกของทางภาคใต้นะครับโดยเป็นความภาคภูมิใจของคนชาวจังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชแล้วก็คนภาคใต้แล้วก็คนไทยทั้งประเทศนะครับก็จริงๆแล้วในนับจากวันนี้ไปเนี่ยก็ทางกระทรวงวัฒนธรรมก็จะร่วมกับทางผู้ว่าราชการจังหวัดแล้วก็ทางมูลนิธิแล้วก็ทางพี่น้องชาวจังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชนะครับรวมทั้งพี่น้องชาวจังหวัดใกล้เคียงและทางภาคใต้ที่จะเข้ามาร่วมกันบริหารจัดการในเรื่องของการขึ้นมรดกโลกครั้งนี้นะครับแล้วก็เราเองก็มีนะครับผู้นำท้องถิ่นท้องที่ซึ่งมีคนทุกคนในจังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชให้ความร่วมมืออยู่แล้วนะครับเราเชื่อมั่นว่าการที่เราได้รับการขึ้นมรดกโลกครั้งนี้เป็นสิ่งที่เป็นความภาคภูมิใจผมเชื่อว่าทุกคนต้องทำได้ดีและยิ่งขึ้นต่อไปครับคือสำคัญที่สุดคือเป็นความสากลโลกซึ่งทำให้ทุกคนทั่วโลกได้เห็นว่าประเทศไทยนั้นมีอารยสถาปัตย์ที่สวยงามแล้วก็เป็นการที่สืบเนื่องกันมาเฉพาะวัดพระตัวที่เราได้ในวันนี้นะครับเราใช้เวลามีระยะเวลามัน 1,500 ปีนะครับซึ่งเราเองต้องยอมรับว่าสิ่งที่เราได้รับมรดกโลกในวันนี้เป็นสิ่งที่ทั่วโลกได้เห็นในเวทีของสากลนะครับแล้วก็ขอขอบคุณท่านรัฐมนตรีมีความรู้สึกอย่างไรบ้างคะที่วันนี้วัดพระมหาธาตุวรมหาวิหารได้รับการขึ้นทะเบียนเป็นแหล่งมรดกและจะมีแผนการดำเนินงานในอนาคตค่ะก็ก่อนอื่นก็ต้องขอแสดงความยินดีนะคะกับพี่น้องประชาชนชาวไทยนะคะแล้วก็โดยเฉพาะพี่น้องในพื้นที่ก็คือชาวจังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชแล้วก็ชาวใต้ทุกคนที่วัดพระมหาธาตุได้รับการขึ้นทะเบียนเป็นมรดกโลกทางวัฒนธรรมซึ่งมีการดำเนินงานกันมาอย่างยาวนานนะคะอย่างที่ท่านสุชาติได้บอกไปก็แนวทางสำหรับกระทรวงวัฒนธรรมนะคะก็พร้อมที่จะสนับสนุนส่งเสริมและก็ให้ความร่วมมือเพราะว่าสถานที่แห่งนี้เนี่ยเป็นสถานที่ที่สะท้อนถึงความเชื่อทางศาสนาแล้วก็มีในเรื่องของการแสดงทางวัฒนธรรมที่จับต้องไม่ได้ก็ถือว่าเป็นสถานที่ที่เป็นมรดกโลกนะคะที่มีชีวิตก็ถือว่าเป็นความภาคภูมิใจของพี่น้องชาวไทยทุกคนเลยดีกว่าค่ะครับก็ขอกราบขอบคุณนะครับท่านอนุทินชาญวิรุฬกุลนายกรัฐมนตรีและรัฐมนตรีว่าการกระทรวงมหาดไทยนะครับท่านสุชาตินะครับรัฐมนตรีว่าการกระทรวงทรัพยากรธรรมชาติและสิ่งแวดล้อมท่านสวิดานะครับแล้วก็รัฐมนตรีว่าการกระทรวงวัฒนธรรมรวมถึงคณะทำงานของทุกท่านนะครับที่ได้มาขับเคลื่อนในพื้นที่รวมถึงท่านสสนะครับท่านสสปุ้ยนะครับแล้วก็พี่น้องประชาชนชาวจังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชรู้สึกภูมิใจนะครับที่มีวันนี้นะครับแล้วก็เรานะครับรอเวลานี้มายาวนานในการขับเคลื่อนซึ่งเรามีคณะกรรมการนะครับในการขับเคลื่อนวัดพระมหาธาตุวรมหาวิหารในการตั้งคณะกรรมการนะครับไซต์แมเนเจอร์ในการดูแลนะครับอย่างเป็นระบบไม่ว่าจะทุกด้านนะครับเรื่องความปลอดภัยในชีวิตและทรัพย์สินนะครับเรื่องของการบริหารจัดการต่างๆนะครับวันนี้ถือว่าอย่างที่ท่านสุชาติกล่าวนะครับ
10 กว่าปีที่รอคอยนะครับก็ถือว่าจังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชพี่น้องประชาชนชาวจังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชและก็พี่น้องประชาชนชาวไทยทุกๆคนประสบความสำเร็จแล้วนะครับในการที่วัดพระมหาธาตุวรมหาวิหารนะครับได้เป็นมรดกโลกนะครับและในวันพรุ่งนี้นะครับท่านพิพัฒน์ราชกิจประการนะครับก็ยังอยู่ในพื้นที่จังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชนะครับที่เตรียมฉลองกับจังหวัดนครศรีธรรมราชไปด้วยกันนะครับ
ขอบคุณนะครับ
ขอบคุณครับนายขอบคุณครับ